glaring, huge problem that Reza Aslan's thesis creates and cannot answer, cannot surmount, is that he paints a picture of Jesus as if he were just like Simon Bar Kokhba or Judas the Galilean or these other false messiahs who led military insurrections against Rome. But he does not and cannot explain why it is that those movements quickly were crushed and that Jesus' movement was apparently crushed when he was crucified, and yet it remained. And yet all those people are forgotten, and Jesus is widely heralded, so to speak, is known throughout the world by believers and unbelievers as preaching a message that was quite different.
Yeah.
If the interpolators added in all the information about being merciful, being forgiving, and so on, they did such a masterful job of it that they created the most singular figure who ever lived in human history.
Yeah.
One whose message resonates with people in all nations, in all times, in all places. And that's really a remarkable achievement for a bunch of forgers who were just trying to keep their movement afloat. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'd like to show Sam what Reza does here in the book with the peaceful passages, because he actually does three things. Because Jesus' teachings are filled with passages about loving everyone and so on. So what do you do with this if your thesis is that Jesus was a racist and wanted to slaughter anyone who's not a Jew and get them out of the land?
Yeah.
Well, he does three things. One, he interprets them as having something to do with the future, right? If there's some peaceful state of affairs, then that's going to be in the future. That's after the violent revolution. Second, he interprets it for solely a Jewish context. So when Jesus says something about loving your neighbor, that's only for your fellow Jews. If the guy who lives down the street happens to be a Roman, well, he's got to die. And third, he says it's been outright fabricated, right? It was invented to make Christianity sound more peaceful when Christians decided to distance themselves from any revolutionary movements. But it's interesting because even he does this with the Sermon on the Mount, right? Now, the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. This is some of the most peaceful stuff you could have. Watch what he does with it. What made Jesus' interpretation of the kingdom of God different from John's, however, was his agreement with the Zealots that God's reign required not just an internal transformation toward justice and righteousness, but a complete reversal of the present political, religious, and economic system. Blessed are you who are poor, for the kingdom of God is yours. Blessed are you who are hungry, for you shall be fed. Blessed are you who mourn, for you shall be laughing. These abiding words of the Beatitudes are, more than anything else, a promise of impending deliverance from subservience and foreign rule. They predict a radically new world order wherein the meek inherit the earth, the sick are healed, the weak become strong, the hungry are fed, and the poor are made rich. In the kingdom of God, wealth will be redistributed and debts canceled. And he goes on to say that the implications of Jesus' words are clear. The kingdom of God is about to be established on earth. God is on the verge of restoring Israel to glory, but God's restoration cannot happen without the destruction of the present order. And he continues on the next page, the kingdom of God is a call to revolution, plain and simple. And what revolution? Especially one fought against an empire whose armies had ravaged the land set aside by God for his chosen people, could be free of violence and bloodshed.
That's
so
very slick.
Even
Yeah, it is,
in
right?
the Sermon on the Mount, even with the Beatitudes, it's actually a call for violence, because when Jesus says these things, in order to have these things this way, in order to have this radical reversal, we need to go on a killing spree and get rid of the present empire so we can set things up like this.
Which, of course, is an exact correspondence with the Islamic idea
Precisely.
that the Muslims must wage jihad and conquer, subjugate the infidels, and then peace will reign when Islamic law is obeyed all over the world. It's exactly the same vision.
So notice, Jesus of the New Testament becomes Muhammad of Islam, and
Yes.
Muhammad of Islam is transformed into the Jesus of the New Testament. He's masterful, isn't he?